So. So then what happened?
I don't know.
Oh, I remember the year that he dug out the creek. He made
What?
it into more like, he'd had the creek dug out and made it more like a river going through there. And it was deep, and we would go out and dive into the water. We swam in there.
Mm-hmm.
That was so exciting.
Why would you dig that out?
He what?
Why do you dig that out?
Why did he dig that out?
I know, it should be deeper, I guess.
Because it was just a little shallow creek. Not a creek, it was a creek.
Yeah, correct. But that connected two lakes.
Yeah.
That connected Jordan Lake and Tupper Lake.
Uh-huh. And then boats could get through there.
Uh-huh.
Interesting life.
I know. One of the guys.
And then between the time you were married and the time I was 10 years old, we moved into our house. You had
Which
lived
house?
in Holt, where I grew up. Moved in there when I was 10. You had lived in 26 places? Daddy told,
Yeah.
that's
I
what
think
Daddy
so.
said once.
And he can name every one of them, too.
Yeah, about 26 places, whether it was a tent or with a member of the family or.
In how many years?
Well,
26 places?
Well, the time I was 10, you were married for what, 2 years before I was born? In 12 years, they lived in that many places. They were homeless.
You see, he was be laid off. He would be, he worked at the motor wheel, and then he worked at General Motors. And then would come a time when they would have summer layoff. We'd had no money coming in, so we'd have to go and move with somebody else, live with somebody until he went back to work again, so we'd have money for rent.
Mm-hmm.
So that was when you were just renting an apartment sharing with those other people?
Yeah, but we would move in with Lyle's folks, or my folks, or Lyle's sister Flora and Slim, or somebody, some relation where it wouldn't cost us anything to live.
Yeah.
And then when the factory would open up, then we'd go rent a place and start all over again. But I remember your dad could, I don't know, he knew right every time we moved and every time we moved back, and I don't know how he could think of all of that time.
Mm-hmm. Now, we used to go and visit my aunt and uncle who lived in Holt out on South Cedar, and I always thought they had such a neat long house. It was long and narrow, and the bed's all in one end, and they had a bunch of kids. And then Uncle Si.
Oh yeah.
And I never knew until recently that the house they lived in was a streetcar. It was a streetcar. Amazing.
I'm sorry.
But gosh, that was, I used to think it was.
It was. It was a streetcar. And that's where I first learned about glorified rice. Fitzpatrick's came down, Bob and Irene, and she brought a bowl of glorified rice. First time I ever had it, and I loved it. And that's where I learned how to make
I
glorified rice.
haven't had any glorified rice in years.
What's glorified rice?
It is delicious. You cook the white rice till it's done. Then you just make whipping cream with your sugar and vanilla and some crushed pineapple, mix them all together. And you can put some maybe mandarin cherries to make it look pretty on the top. It's very good. It's very good. Have lots of whipped cream in it.
So how'd you start eating crackers and milk? Because I'm the only one who eats that anymore.
I hate that.
Oh, I love it.
I had crackers and milk for lunch the other day.
I still do it all the time.
Well, you eat it. You
I know,
eat
that's what I
too.
said. I
Yeah.
like
Oh,
it.
I thought you were.
That was what, a staple when you were hungry?
Oh yeah, you bet your life.
Or bread and milk.
Bread and milk.
That's good too.
Does anyone still
Did
eat
you
that
ever
besides
hear
me?
Did you
No.
ever hear of what they call sweet milk pop? That's something that was a depression food. You take
Sweet milk pop?
Take milk and get it hot and stir flour into it, and it would gradually thicken, and put butter and brown sugar on it. That was sweet milk pop. That was a meal.
It was a meal?
That was a
Wow.
meal.
Wow.
Well, interesting.
It's a wonder we didn't all die of malnutrition.
Well, Grandpa had vegetables he was growing and selling.
Yeah, we had vegetables there, and then we moved out by Parma, where Joyce was born. That was during the deep part of the Depression. We had a nice garden there. We lived on what we raised. You probably don't remember the mosquitoes there, do you?
Not really.
The mosquitoes were so thick. We lived right next to a big woods.
I remember the woods.
Uh-huh.
I was 3, and I remember that. I remember living there.
Uh-huh.
I remember the house.
But we'd go outdoors at night. We'd go for a walk. You probably don't remember, but you were so little. And we'd go for a walk, and then we'd have to run for the house fast to get away from the mosquitoes, so the mosquitoes wouldn't be in the house when we got there.
And tell them how when somebody would come over and where us kids would sleep.
We'd do what?
Where we would sleep upstairs in that
Oh
house.
my gosh, I wouldn't dare put you up there now.
Oh no.
Where
Why,
you?
it was nothing but an attic.
An
Well, you
attic.
couldn't even stand up, and that's where those 2 little kids slept. No,
And you-
couldn't even put a bed up there. It was just I don't know what you slept on.
On the floor. And it
Had
was
to
right
climb
next
a
to it.
ladder to get up there.
And it was just a real short room with a chimney up the middle. It could have caught on fire and we would have burned up.
Yeah,
I remember sleeping up there.
do you?
Hmm.
But that was just a 2-room house.
I didn't know we slept there all the time. I thought we just slept there when cousins came over.
Oh no, that was your
Oh.
bedroom. But there was just a petition there, just a square house.
So who was up there? You and Joyce?
Junior and her.
Junior
Oh.
and me.
Joyce was born while we lived there.
Hmm.
We had a bassinet for her. Well, it was one that we had for you too. But that downstairs just had a partition between the kitchen and dining room and the living room, and that was it. We had no bedroom. We had a bed at the left end of the living room. That was the bedroom. The bed was there and the dresser. Here was the heating stove. And over here was the table we ate off on.
Hmm. Just like Danny's apartment.
So how did you end up having the place? Because you went to Florida. Didn't you have a place in Florida at one time, too?
Well, that was much later.
So you started traveling at one point, right?
Yeah, that when we didn't start going to Florida until about 1950.
When everyone was gone.
I don't know how we happened to start to go to Florida, but we did. But we never really had security. Let's put it that way, until he went into business for himself.
So you started the cement business?
You couldn't depend on the factory, automobile factory, because they always had the summer layoff.
Yeah.
There was a time of nothing there, no income or anything. They did have unemployment
So
after
he
a
did
while.
work. He did work for the oil or the automobile industry. I never knew he worked for.
Worked in Fisher Buddy.
Oh. And then he started the cement company.
After the war was over, he started cement work. He said he'd never go back to the factory again when the war was over. And that's when he started. He didn't know beans about cement no more than the man in the moon.
So he did that after World War II.
Started it in himself.
With a little hand mixer.
Mhm.
You have to turn the crank.
Not a
was that
hand
it?
mixer, a gasoline.
I mean, yeah. But you had to
Gasoline
do it
driven.
yourself.
Then after a while, he got the ready mix. After he got organized and got started at it, then he had the standards block deliver cement.
So did Uncle Al always work with him? He just started
When he
doing
got
that later.
old enough, he went. Junior went into the Navy right after he graduated, and then when he come home, then he went into cement work with his dad. But it was, that's what hurts me, Tim, when I think about it, because it was that cement work was the cause of Grandpa's death. Dr. Lord had told us that
The
he'd
cement
seen
dust.
cancer before, but nothing like what he had what your grandpa had. He said, usually he said a cancer in the lung looks like a spider. There's a body and there's legs. But he said this cancer that Lyle had, he said looked like a mass of worms. And he said he believed that it came from inhaling the dust of the cement. And that's what hurts when I think about it. That the cause of his death was making us a living, you see. Inhaled. He got later so that he wore a mask over his nose, but at first when he was mixing his own, getting that cement dust into his lungs, that he didn't think about it or didn't have it at that time or what, I don't know, but he inhaled a lot of dust.
I think people understood the dangers of things like that because people work with asbestos and stuff like that back at the time too, right? I mean,
Yeah. But of course, then later, after he had the cement delivered ready-mix trucks, he didn't inhale that cement so much.
it was already mixed.
But I remember when they would pour the cement sidewalks, they would trowel it, and then when they got it all troweled, he would sprinkle the dry cement on top of that and just trowel that in so there'd be a nice, pretty top on it. You know, smooth, slick, which would probably be easy to slip up on. But what he did well.